Welcome back to another episode of Saturday Night Cinema. As always, I'm your host, Sawyer St. Sin, and we are continuing with the Three Mothers Trilogy tonight, looking at the second film, Inferno. As you can tell, I'm fully ready for tonight. Sorry, I had to go with red. Anyways, so our release date was April 2nd, 1980. Of course, writer, director, Dario Argento. Unfortunately, though, for a lot of the filming, Argento was very sick, like bedridden sick. So he did have help from one of his friends, and that is Italian director Mario Bava. Oh, guys, I'm so terrible at names. You know this. Anyways, he's really good. He had worked with Argento a bunch of times, just, writing and just filling in, like, kind of wherever he needed. But while Argento was bedridden, he did film a lot of this movie, including one of my absolute favorite scenes in this movie. It gave me a lot of anxiety because I don't like the subject. I know a lot of people don't like the subject, but again, we'll get into that a little bit more in just a minute. So, our cast for Inferno, our leading man is Lee Mikulski, and he plays Mark Elliott. Irene Monacle, I'm sorry, I think it's a Miracle actually. She plays Rose Elliott, so Mark's sister. Then we have Eleanor Gigara, she plays Sarah. Daria Nicolodi, who, if you remember last episode, I talked about how she helped write a good portion of Suspiria. She actually said that in later interviews, she said that Inferno, she had a part, writing kind of like some of the story points of it, but she didn't get credit for writing it because she had such a hard time getting credits for writing Suspiria that she just didn't fight it this time around. But she is in this movie, and she plays Elise, who is Rose's neighbor. She's kind of like a New York socialite, if you will. Then we have, I believe it's Sasha Pitoff. He is the store owner next door. Kazini, I think is how it is. But he's the store owner next door who owns the antique store in which Rose comes into possession of a certain book. Next we have Victoria Lazar, and she is the nurse of one of the other people in this movie, and it turns out that she's also the mother that we're talking about in this movie. Just under everybody's nose as a unsuspicious little nurse. We have Alida Villati, and she plays Carol. She's kind of the caretaker of the residents of the building, you know. Then we have Gabriel Villi. He plays Carlo. And what seems like Carlo is Elisa's like butler, but he also has like some dealings with the caretaker. But we don't really see a whole lot of him. But like, I mean, he is one of the deaths in the movie, and he's doing some things, you know, so thought I should mention him. And, oh no, I'm sorry. Carlo is not the one, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Carlo is actually the one that Sarah meets up with in Rome when she's scared. Goodness. He's got a pretty cool death too, though. His death is something else. Leopold Mistorelli. He's the butler. John the butler. Yeah. Can't believe that I got those two mixed up. It happens sometimes, though. And then, to round off our cast, we have Fyodor, not Theodore, it's like Fyodor, Capellini, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's Professor Arnold. He's the one that the nurse is taking care of. But then it turns out that he's actually the one that wrote the book. So he's Dr. Villari. And he's the one that wrote the book that we're going to talk about. It's kind of the focal point a little bit of this for a minute. So the soundtrack. Okay, let's talk about the soundtrack. Because it doesn't have, just like Suspiria had like the one like song from Goblin, and it kind of like this one song just ended up being the whole score for the movie. They did do a score for the movie, and it's very like opera sounding, like a lot of like organ like music is what it sounds like. But there is one song that happens towards the end during like some big like, you know, climactic moment that is called Mater Tenebrarum, right? So that's actually Tenebrarum is how you pronounce it. Guys, my Latin, just like everything else, terrible. I took Latin class, 2 semesters of Latin class in high school, and I'm still terrible. Mater Tenebrarum. That's Mother of Darkness. And the song is fantastic. And it actually like says the names of the mothers like in it. I feel like it's like could be like, you know, a song for all 30 movies all together. It's beautiful. Love it. If you follow me on Facebook, I shared it on there. You can find it on YouTube. It is by Kenneth Emerson, and it is fantastic. Okay, so like I said, Mother Tenebrarum, the Mother of Darkness, she's actually the youngest of the 3 mothers, and they call her the most cruel. And that's, they never give her name. Like in Suspiria, they said Helena Marcos, but in none of the movies have they ever said Mother Tenebrarum's name. And so in this movie, we find out a little bit more that the 3 mothers are actually like 3 sisters, 3 basically like top of the covens, Tenebrarum, Mother of Darkness, Hell's Over New York, Helena Marcos, Mother of Sighs, Mother Suspiriorum. She resides in Germany. And then we have the last mother, the Mother of Tears, and she is in Rome, Italy. And so let's just get on with the movie. Talk about the movie and the sequences of this. So we start off with Rose looking at the book that she found at the antique store. And it is The Three Mothers. And it is written in Latin. It's taken from the doctor that I talked about, from his transcripts, his diaries, if you could call it, like, that's the best way to call it, his journal, whatever you want to call it. So he talks about how, the three evil sisters rule the world with sorrow, darkness, and tears. And that he was actually the architect that built their dwellings. So the one in New York, which again, if you follow me on social media, you saw the picture of it. It is gorgeous, like just absolutely fantastic. But he was the architect for all three of the buildings. And Rose starts to suspect that she actually lives in the building. There's been some things going on that she's suspicious of. So she writes to her brother Mark, who coincidentally is a music student in Rome. So she writes to him saying that he needs to come visit her ASAP. And she goes to mail the letter. It's raining as always. It seems like it's always raining in something. But anyways, so she goes over to the antique store and she's asking him, about the book and if he believes in witches, and he just basically, he basically gives like the bored housewives like believe this stuff type answer, brushes her off and goes on its way. But in the book, it says that the key would be found in the cellar and that another key would be found under your feet. So with the clue of the cellar, she actually goes down into the basement area. She like accesses the basement area from this like weird little like trap, this weird little door situation outside the building. And she goes searching around down there. And what does she find? A random hole filled with water. So she accidentally drops her apartment keys down in this water. Now, like I said, I have a favorite scene. This is my favorite scene. This underwater scene was filmed like flawlessly in my opinion. But it also gives me super high anxiety because I do not like water where I cannot see very well in it. I don't like it. No. If I can't see my feet, I'm not in it. I can't do it. No, sir. And I don't know. But, I mean, she needs her apartment keys. She can't be locked out of her apartment. So she takes off her heels. Well, I mean, she tries to reach down there and grab it. But she just, ends up pushing it off of what it was hung on to and down deeper into the hole. So she takes off her shoes and dives right into the hole. And it looks like it's just like a flooded, area of a basement. There's like a chandelier down there, some artwork, just looks like someone's junky basement, right? So she's like searching around for her keys. She gets them. But out of nowhere, a dead body shows up floating in the water. Like, you remember that scene in Jaws where like the head pops out and it's just like floating there? It's kind of like that, except for it's a whole body. It's an entire body. And so she like screams, which I don't know how she didn't drown, because I would have intaken a lot of air on that one, or water on that one. So she's like trying to get out, and the body just keeps like floating up and like hitting her on her toes. She's like just struggling to get out, and my anxiety keeps going higher and higher as this happens. Because I'm like, look, we are less than 30 minutes into this, and we're already gonna have a kill. Like, and it's gonna be drowning in this nasty ass water with this corpse. Ugh. Anyways, so she gets out and she takes off fucking running, which, who blames her, right? And so she's like hitting the button for the elevators, and she hears something coming, so she kind of like hides until she can, get away. All right, so cut to Rome, where we have Mark sitting in class listening to whatever it is that the teacher wants them to listen to. Guys, I didn't recognize it. I don't know. And I don't think it was like an actual piece of work, because then it would have been in the credits and I didn't see it credited in the credits. But he like tries to read the letter that his sister sent to him, but he keeps like getting like this weird like look on his face, like kind of like a headache or something. And then there's this, like, he notices this girl who does not look like she belongs in this class. First off, everybody else in the room has their headphones and the sheet music, and her headphones and sheet music are just sitting there. She's not paying attention. She has a cat for some reason. Guys, she's in like what looks to be some semi-formal attire and just petting this cat with her weird gaze. And Mark's just kind of like mesmerized for a minute until Sarah's like, hey, pay attention. So class is over, and like he notices that like chick that was being weird is like gone already. Like, she's already at the top of the stairs about to be out. So he packs up real fast and tries to go after her. So Sarah is like, oh, well, he left this letter from his sister. So she starts reading it. And so she decides to go to the library to see if she can find this book that that Rose is talking about. And she finds it, and then it sounds like somebody's like calling her name. It's weird. But she like sneaks out of the library, and she goes like through like a back exit, but she gets kind of lost. And she sees that there's a guy like working in something. I don't know. There's a lot of like cauldron situations and like what looks to be like boiling potato soup. I'm not sure what that's about. But she's like, hey, like, I got turned around. I'm lost. I don't know how to get out. And he tells her like, next door, tells her how to get out. But he sees in the mirror that she's got the book. And so he like turns, and I say we really don't see like what it looks like. Just that it's got some big old hairy arms and some big nasty long nails. Like, nasty looking. So before she can get away, they like grab her by her hair and push her down like by the cauldron of boiling goop. I don't know what it is. And it's like, give me the book. And she's just like, oh my God. And so she just like throws it at them basically and like runs off into the night. But like the person is chasing them. This thing is chasing them. But she finally like is able to like lose them and get to her apartment, where she runs into Carlo. And she's acting kind of weird, and like when his stop comes, he's like gonna go get off, and she's like, no, like, stay with me, like, you know, I'm scared and there's something after me. So he does. He goes to her apartment and sits with her, and she's like talking to him about witches, and he's just kind of like, okay, whatever. But then the lights in her apartment start going weird, and she's like trying to make a phone call and she can't. She's trying to talk to Mark about, you know, having the letter and everything, and it's breaking up and it's crazy. So Carlo goes to try to find the like fuse box and see if he can, you know, fix the power issue. So after a while of not really hearing anything from Carlo, she goes to find him. She finds him, and he has a knife like completely stuck through his throat. He's just like bleeding out, bleeding all over her, just like, ah. And she's like trying to get away, but he's like almost like, I mean, he basically like, you know, is on top of her, just bleeding out all over her. And then the assailant pulls the knife out from Carlo's neck and shoves it right into Sarah's back. Lovely. Very lovely. So then we see that Mark is back. Mark's back, right? And he's like, you know, knocking on Sarah's door. No one answers. He sees that it's unlocked, so he, you know, helps himself in. He notices that there's a couple of things that are like astray, some things that don't seem right. And then Sarah's dead body comes like busting through a screen of some sort. Yeah. So Mark calls, you know, the authorities, and he's like walking out stone-faced, you know, like just kind of like in shock of what just happened, out of the apartment building. And the police are like, you know, asking, like, kind of like, or someone in passing, like, asks him something. And he's like, I don't know, like, they were dead before, like, I got there. So then we jump back to New York with Rose. And she's, you know, she's poking around probably where she shouldn't. You know, getting a little too close to finding out some answers. So she notices there's someone trying to get into her apartment. And so she runs out like the other side of the apartment. Part of the door handle is broken, so she like slices her like hand open. But she's able to get out of the apartment, and there's like a service door like near her apartment. It's like hidden by some like curtains. And she like leaves a bloody handprint like on the curtain before she goes, you know, through the door. And then there's like just a blood trail, you know. But she's going through the service entrance, which like hardly anyone ever goes through. And she ends up in like this room. I'm not sure where it is inside of this building, because just like in Suspiria, like the building has so many like ins and outs and hidden like areas and just some crazy architectural like stuff happening in this place. But of course there is a abundance of Technicolor red lighting, right? And but not only is it just like red, okay, like it's different shades of red to make you like kind of feel different. Yeah, you know, like if you see like a, you know, a bright like vibrant red, like it emotes a certain emotion, you know. Anyways, so she's going through this area. She thinks that she has finally lost her assailant, and she's turns her back on this window. Listen, guess what? In horror movies, any horror movie ever, it's probably a good idea if you stay away from the window, or at least you keep facing the window. I mean, Suspiria facing the window didn't help her. They literally shoved her head through it. But, you know, I mean, maybe not turning your back, because big old hairy hands, which I think it seemed like the same big old hairy hands from Suspiria. But anyways, come and grab her face and pull her down, like, to the windowsill, because this window is open. So pull down to the windowsill. And with the force that they're pushing her head down, it kind of like jars the window a little bit and it slides. And so the assailant's like, oh, okay. So they grab it and they push it down onto her neck several times. And so the window is lit red with lighting, right? And then the blood that hits the window, because of the lighting of everything, the red blood that hits the window looks almost black against, you know, the red light of the window. It looks fantastic. And the way that it was shot and the coloring of the red and everything, I know this sounds weird, but it was really a beautiful death scene. There was some beauty to it. I feel weird saying that, and it probably is weird, you know, hearing that, but that's what it is, and I'm sticking with it. So Rose is dead, and Mark shows up in, you know, New York, trying to, you know, figure out where his sister is, and no one can really tell him where his sister is. So he starts, you know, piecing together some things, and after talking to Elise a little bit, he realized that there's some funny things going on, because he's like sitting in, you know, his sister's house, kind of looking over stuff, and it sounds like Elise, like it sounds like her voice is everywhere, right? But it turns out that Elise and Rose figured out that there's these little holes in the wall, and if you speak into them, basically like your voice echoes throughout like all of the pipes, which probably means that, you know, everyone in the building can probably hear you, right? So, you know, he realizes that there's like, you know, something going on. And Elise goes back to her apartment. She actually accidentally stepped in some of, you know, Rose's blood. But she at first just was like, oh, it's just paint. But then when she gets to her apartment, she realizes that it is blood. And her butler like draws her bath and everything for her, and she like sends him away, that like that's all that she needs from him tonight, you know, goodbye, whatever. But then she goes back over to talk to Mark, and they're talking, and then they hear something like spooks them. So like he goes exploring, like, you know, where they see drops of blood, and he gets into this what looks like a broiler room type situation, with like one whole like wall is just like glass. Elise stays behind. She doesn't want to go. She stays behind. But then like she starts getting freaked out and she's yelling for Mark, and so she goes into the stairwell for the service entrance, and she sees that somebody has knocked Mark out and is dragging him away, and she freaks out, which, I mean, who wouldn't, right? Like, you're like, oh my god, Mark. But, you know, the cloaked menace sees her. And so Elise is like, oh god, I gotta get away. I gotta hide. Something's gotta happen. Right? So she ends up in what looks to be like an attic situation, right? And she's just, in her scene, like everything's lit like this blue, almost like purpley color. Again, it's so beautiful. And she's just like in this gorgeous nightgown, just, you know, being fabulous in this blue lit area. But so she gets attacked by cats. There's a lot of cats around. Like, I don't know what it is, but like the store owner is also like, keep your cats to yourself, man, because they keep getting in my store and I'm done with it. But like a cat attacks her and several cats like join in, and that is able to get the assailant, you know, close enough to her to then kill Elise. Guys, I've noticed that there's a lot more like death in this one than what there was in Suspiria. I feel like a lot more people died in this one. So we cut to Mark, who wakes up on the couch after really not knowing what the hell just happened. And he tries to find Elise, and he can't. Like, she's not answering, you know, and he tries to go over to the, you know, he tries to talk to the antique dealer too, and the antique dealer just doesn't give him anything at all. Nothing. Mark can't get any answers for anything. Oh, yeah, speaking of the antique dealer, that guy, man. So he's just chilling, you know. And the assailant's after the books, because it steals the book from Rose's apartment after, you know, getting rid of her. And the antique dealer actually has 3. So the assailant is stealing the 3 books from his office, or from his shop, and he hears it, so he goes out and he's like, hey, well, what's going on? But he doesn't really find anything at that point. So all he finds is cats. So it turns out that he's like taking these cats and putting them in a bag and sticking them in a trunk. And when he gets enough cats in a bag, well, he goes out to take care of the situation. So takes them down to like a pond area. Guys, he doesn't get around very well. He's on crutches. I should have said that. He's on crutches, and he's trying to like drown the cats in this bag and in the water in which he is right now. Like, he just can't like get to it. So he has to go a little deeper, and so he's able to, you know, do it, but trying to get back, he falls, and some rats start attacking him, because there's like a slew of them. So these rats start attacking him, and someone who's like running a hot dog stand down the way like hears it and comes running, you know, what we think is to save him. Turns out it's Mr. Hairy Hands. And so he gets killed and drug over for a army of rats to take care of the body. I mean, at least he was dead before they started really eating him, right? Gosh, you guys, this is just terrible. So Mark finds like some writings of Rose, and puts together some, you know, some things. He notices that there's been ants like getting in a lot, right? And while he's digging up the floorboards in his sister's apartment, Miss Carol and Mr. John the butler are in Elise's apartment, basically robbing her. just taking all of her jewels and money. And she was like, you know where her husband's going to be at this time. Like, you know, give him a call and, you know, tell him something, whatever. You know, just like make up some shit. So John is on his way to do that. When he is killed. But in doing that, like, in being killed, like, a candle gets knocked over. And so, like, Elise's apartment starts on fire, and the curtains and everything. And then, well, Miss Carol, who, I don't know what she was thinking, but she, like, tried to pull on the curtains to get them down and stomp them out, I guess. But what they did is they just blanketed her, and she starts burning to death. Whew. So we have a fire in one apartment. We have Mark, who is digging up fucking floorboards. Anyways, he finds a scroll in the floorboards. And then for some reason he, like, gets down in the floorboard, like underneath the floorboard. And I mean, it's not like, it ends up not being that bad, like, but he finds like a little doorway, like a little hidden passage out to somewhere else. And then he goes down the stairs and he opens like an area that looks like it was the same as what he just came out of. And again, it's just like a tunnel way to, like, under something else. It's kind of crazy. So as Mark is, like, snooping around, he winds up in the doctor, professor, whatever you want to call him. He ends up in this, like, weird, like, balcony area of his apartment. So he sees the nurse wheel him in, and once the nurse is left, then the professor, like, rolls into this one area. And Mark follows him, and the doctor, like, hooks this, like, weird machine thing up to him, and he's like, you thought that I couldn't talk. And he just starts giving, like, Mark his backstory of, like, this is my real name, you know, the Valari, and, like, you know, I'm not, like, one of them, I'm a prisoner situation, you know, whatever. So Mark, like, gets close to him, which the whole time I was like, Mark, God, come on, dude, you know better than this. Don't trust him. And so he, Valari, stabs him. Ooh, that was a bug. Stabs him with some syringe. We don't know what's in the syringe, but stabs him with a syringe. And Mark, like, pushes him over. And because Valari is still, like, plugged in to this, you know, sound system, basically, with a thing around his neck, he starts, like, choking. I mean, he's in a wheelchair. He can't move. He can't get himself off the floor. But Mark is over there doing what I guess any normal person would do who just got stuck with a needle, right? He starts sucking out whatever it is that he just tried to put in him. And once he feels like he is significant, like, got it out significantly, then he goes to help Dr. Valari. Sorry. You know, then, I mean, we have to have the standoff with, you know, the mother, right? So Mark, you know, is just going off and looking for her, basically, and he finds this medieval looking, like, castle scenery with this, you know, big long table and this lady just, like, sitting at it. And, you know, she goes into her spiel, and there's this really cool positioning of, like, you can see her in the mirror, you know, like, you can see her in the mirror and her there, and she's not really matching up very much. as she's speaking to Mark. And then, like, she disappears, but her body's still in the mirror. And, like, you can hear her, like, talking to Mark, like, again, what sounds like she's everywhere, right? Just sounds like she's coming from all corners of the room. And then, like, her version of her in the mirror, she turns and she's, you know, still talking as she's, version of her is walking to the mirror. And then all of a sudden it's like, death, right? And she's in this, like, and then it's just like this cloaked figure with this cheap skeleton Halloween mask and stuff on. But it's great. Like, it's fantastic. Like, the transition, words are hard. The transition was, I mean, for the time was flawless. Like, it looked great. But, like, Mark just kind of, like, I mean, everything's on fire now. Like, everything's on fire. Mark just kind of, like, goes, like, nope, I'm dipping out. There's not, like, a big, like, you know, like Suspiria, like, she shoved, you know, something sharp into Marcos's neck. And in this, he just kind of goes, nope, and heads out. But, you know, we get another scene of, like, a building just in flames and our main character just walking out like it's nothing. The difference is, in Suspiria, you know, Susie looked happy and accomplished. She was smiling and just like, oh, thank God that whole thing is over. Whereas Mark doesn't look like that. He looks just beat down and, like, not happy at all about the situation. But I do like how now the first and second story of the movie end in the building that it contains the mothers just in flames. Because if you haven't learned anything from years and years and years of, you know, stories about witches, the only way that you can kill that evil is by fire. So that ends Inferno. As much as I did like this movie, and as much as the red and blue lighting was fantastic, Suspiria is still my favorite. I still like that one a whole lot. This one, at times, felt a little, like, disconnected and just a little, like, kind of ways. Very minuscule, but still, like, not, like, fully connected. And that might be because, you know, Argento wasn't there the whole time. That he did have to have some, you know, people to step in and help him to complete the film. It happens, you know. You don't want to completely halt production on, you know, a movie, especially, you know, like in, you know, 70s or 80s. Like, I mean, come on. I mean, movies are expensive, and if you have to halt production and then you have, like, a studio breathing down your neck in some cases, I mean, you gotta get it done. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on Inferno. Next week, we will be doing The Mother of Tears. This one did come out, like, way later than the other ones, so to just, you know, heads up on that one. Also, it is the hardest one to find. The other two are currently on Tubi, but probably leaving in the next couple of days, because that's what streaming services do. But we'll look at Mother of Tears. It's from the 2000s, might look a little different. Filming might be a little, like, you know, different setting, all of that good stuff. But we will see how it goes. Thank you for joining me on Saturday Night Cinema, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!